think it's easier to start a small business in China than it is in the United States. I mean, we say we want small business, but we overwhelm them with paperwork, so that when a person tries to start a small business, it's just unbelievable. Now, I walked through the slums of China in Shanghai, and there were small businesses all over the place. I bet you they didn't have to go through the bureaucracy we do.
Well, I mean, that's, right now, I hear it every day, and I'm sure we got some small business owners would say here tonight. The impediments to growth are taxes, regulation, and healthcare costs. And right now, in New York State, we're leading in all the wrong categories. That's part of our problem. And, you know, we are losing population in our state, and they're not leaving because of the weather. You know? We've known about the weather. We grew up here. We actually love this climate. It's because of the business environment. That's what's forcing people out of it and out of our state. We can do this, though. We can change it. We have to recognize the issue, and then we need to take decisions that actually move us to make it from a hostile and uncertain environment to a more facilitating environment. So, you know, you're absolutely right in terms of those onerous regulations. And incidentally, it's not all at one level. I mean, you have regulations at the federal, the state, and the local level, and in most cases, in good intention. You know, red tape. Does everybody wonder how red tape even got here? You know, it's because it's snafu. Something happens, and people say, we don't want that to happen again, so you start putting in all these stipulations to prevent it. That's why, I'll tell you, as a commander, there were times when I would take a step back. I would take a step back and just say, what exactly happened here, and what may have, rather than knee-jerk, and throw a new policy up, you know, I'm trying to understand, what happened here? Why did people take the decision that they did? What was the second-order effect here? Because I'd studied bureaucracy. And I know that's what happened, you know. That's what, if you go into, like in the Army, if you go into a new command, and you see like 37 policy statements, I can backtrack you. I can reverse engineer it and tell you there's probably 36 screw-ups somewhere. You know, and that's what's going on, you know. I mean, so the point being that sometimes it's better to actually, let's take a slow go, understand it, and most times, a slower systemic change is better than a knee-jerk episodic implementation. So, I mean, and that's part of the reason, that's what we're fighting right now, is that we have so much of this in the way.
But most of that's, the impediments are not at the federal level. Most of them are local, state, county levels on business.
Well, you know, here's an example, is because so much of it is about managing risk. There's risk everywhere. There really is. There's risk when you're out of bed in the morning. So the question is the risk rising to a level that you need to take concerted action against it? So, you know, for example, the diesel engines right now. I want to give you an example that reinforces Jay's point. So, you know, diesel engines. Now, if I ask the question, good for the environment, not good for the environment, well, I think we can create it. Preferably we wouldn't have it, but we have it now. That's the point. We have diesel engines right now. So is the better move to, over time, over recapitalization, move to something better, or should we put a diesel retrofit requirement on our economy in the middle of a recession? And you know that's what happened.
Yes.
This is what we did. And by the way, Al-Qaeda didn't do this. We did this to ourselves. That's a mistake. That's an example when we're not in balance.
Well, the healthcare issue is basically a small business problem.
It is now. It's a huge one. I'll tell you right now.
It's always been a
Well,
it's everyone's problem because they're going to tax everybody that has health insurance. It's going to be considered a taxable benefit. We will all pay for the ones that don't have it. And that's going to be coming here real soon.
Yeah, I mean, you know, up till this year, small business owners this was all part of the dynamic labor market. You know, a small business owner, most of them, if not all of them, in their heart, wanted to do right by their employees, but they're making business decisions as far as, and it is a decision because it's related to the labor market. Because if you really want to attract the best workers, you're going to have the best pension, the best benefits plan that you can. But you have to weigh that against the overhead. So that's why it's a constant calculation to figure out what can you afford to offer and what do you think you'll get in terms of, now what we skewed is when we tied that to the healthcare bill this year. Because what really, and then you see what's going on right now, right? You've got McDonald's and others, and you've got people getting exemptions from this, and look, it's a significant issue. The whole thing is right now is, we're seeing reverberations. You may have gotten your quotes for next year. You know, the smallest increase I've seen is 12%.
Let's say 11 now.
Okay, well 11. That's now it's the low. Okay, but you know the thing that's most pernicious about it is the further away you are from an urban area, the more your increases because of the way supply and demand works in terms of doctors. So right now, MVP increases up in the Adirondack region is 35%. 35%. We can't sustain this. So this is what's going on. And this is exactly the reaction that's happening right now. So there is significant angst about this.
Could you comment on the health issue though in a global competitive view?
Yeah.
We're the only industrialized nation that has not requiring or has health care for everybody, therefore putting the burden on individual business owners instead of spreading the burden throughout the whole economy.
Well, Jay,
comment on that.
Well, yeah, sure. The first thing is that, and a bit of a quibble, I guess, up front, is I think that if you're talking about healthcare insurance, then we agree. If you're talking about healthcare, see, we actually have, right now, I'm not aware of an emergency room that turns people away. If you go in, and I'm telling you,
but that's the worst time to show up.
Absolutely. No, I look, I have said all along, my view on all this, and we can disagree on this, is 88% of those in our district have health care insurance. The problem is they're paying too much for it. Now, is access an issue? I've never said access is not an issue, but the point is that we have a safety net right now in Medicaid in the emergency room, and the most pressing issue is the cost, because the cost is impacting everyone. What I would have liked to have seen the president do, and I think if he would have done it, this would have been incredible. It would have made a positive impact, and it would have helped the system, and it wouldn't have solved all, for sure, because there are much more issues that relate to our healthcare system, but it would have actually give us confidence. Part of our issue right now is we're so fractured. We've got this real issue with partisanship. If we would have focused in on trying to help with the cost situation, and I think the way we could have done that, I'll tell you that what really needs to be done is we've got, on the front end, there are issues with for the cost we pay in diagnosis, and we go through administration and what paperwork. This is all part of the situation we're having. We have situations where not only you go into the ER, but there are situations where a doctor who's the highest, the guy with the most knowledge, is the guy that's telling you got a cold. Man, we could have done that so much lower, and we could have saved so much cost. But the last thing I think we need to do right now is to create such a huge effort with this bill. We're going to end up with higher premiums, higher costs, more regulations, and more big government. What I think we needed to do is get access, what I believe we should do right now, is get access to insurance companies across state lines. We should do this. Now, in New York State, we do have multiple choices here, it's true. But in some states, there's one, and that does impact. Because when costs continue to rise, that is something, it is not a state issue. There's very much an interactivity between costs across state lines. And that's why I think we should try to get at this, to have that access. We do this now for our automobile insurance. So we should do it for our healthcare insurance too. We should also have ways for us to manage our health. So if you stay fit and you keep your blood pressure at a good rate and you keep your cholesterol low, you should be treated in a certain way. Just like think about your car insurance. When you go years without an accident, what's your cost? You get generally rewarded for that, right? But for our healthcare insurance,
across the board increase.
of course the converse is true as well if you got teenage kids.
Chris, I think in a lot of companies that exists now.
Yes.
They got down with healthcare, and they want to know what their risks are, what they're managing. And for everybody who went through it, you got 20% discount insurance. So.
Some of the more forward-leaning, that's exactly right. Some of the more forward-leaning insurance companies aren't doing just that.
But my concern is the fact that the healthcare bill is on the board right now. I'm going to get taxed, and everybody else in this room that has healthcare, we're going to get taxed because they're the benefit. We're paying for the ones that don't. I don't have a problem. I think there should be universal healthcare, bottom line. But why should I be taxed for it?
We're already paid.
It's like having life insurance. It's another. If your company offers it, it's another taxable benefit. You got to pay at the end of the year, $100, $200. But you keep talking about taxes, and here's one right in front of us that's coming at us. We elect you next month. What are you going to do to fix it?
Yeah. So I'll tell you that what I think we need to do is take a small bite out of this right now, not a big one. So that's why I've said this all along. I've never tried to oversell what I'm saying on this. Take a small parsimonious bite out of this. Let's get insurance companies across state lines. Let's do tort reform. Tort reform, look, it's not going to solve all. Some people say, that's only 3% or 4%. Look, let's do it. Let's get that done. And some states have done this, like Texas has done tort reform. It is helpful to the system to get it anchored. Because right now, you know, with a big question mark, without it, you go to insure doctors and they get hit with the worst case. So it's, even in the Albany area, they pay in excess over $100,000 for medical malpractice insurance. Without a worst case, I mean, that's what you're looking at. The other thing is, too, is we end up with defensive medicine practices because of this. So, you know, that's what, we should do this. Let's get that done. It's sort of like, you know, you ever see, you know, in sports, the first scrimmage that you have is you usually set yourself up. You want to get a good sense of your rhythm and get a game under your belt and win. Let's get a very bite-sized reform so we can show it, and all Americans should join in. And then we'll say we did it, because that's part of the problem right now. That is part of the problem, is that we haven't reformed healthcare, and that's part of the reason why they put the ball across the end zone in this thing, even though there wasn't a bipartisan consensus. They said we haven't done it, we need to do it. So that's why I'm for, let's do something that's something we can all agree on. Let's pick something, you know, really bite-sized, and let's get that done. And then I'll tell you, what I think we need to do is we need to continue to encourage. There's a company in Ireland that right now is looking at, it's got some very exciting breakthrough in terms of diagnosis, that with a pinprick, you know, and I mean, this is a report I got, and I'd love to learn more about it, but that with a pinprick can do a diagnosis, and that can cover many of our major ailments. Can you imagine if we get that kind of front end?
I just had it done 2 weeks ago. Press, you sit right there and you prick your finger. Yeah, I'm happy to know what kind of versus their reaction.
Can you imagine though? If
7 minutes later, it just kicks the whole thing out. Cholesterol levels, sugar levels, it's impressive.
But you know, can you imagine if we get so on the front end, we can actually cut out so much, you know, usage by getting it's possible we could even do this at home.
Well, I think it's a great program because it's going to reward people who want to stay healthy. For people who don't want to stay healthy, then you're going to pay for it.